You're listening to The Broken Hearts on Strong Room Alive, and tonight's show is all about conserving the heritage of the East End. Obviously, the whole world has its eyes on the East End this summer because of the Olympics, so we wanted to feature some of our favourite aspects of East End life. So, who better to talk to than Frances Mayhew, Artistic Director of Wilton's Music Hall. Hello, Frances.
Hi.
Now, the history of Wilton's Music Hall itself is absolutely incredible, and it's definitely one of our favourite places in the East End. Could you talk us through it?
Yes, it's got an amazing history. It's very patchy and full of different stories, but I think that's quite a reflection on the whole of East End in itself. It started off as a row of houses with an old pub, and then the pub was bought by John Wilton. He then bought some more houses around it, and then he built this beautiful, great music hall across their backyards, which is why you can't see it.
And when was this?
The houses were built in 1720, and the music hall itself was built in 1858. So it had been running as a sort of row of houses and pub for quite some time before John Wilton came to the area. And then he built the music hall in 1858, and it ran as a really successful music hall for about 20 years after that. He gave people like Champagne Charlie his first break, and Arthur Lloyd, he wrote that song, Man on the Flying Trapeze, these kinds of early music hall songs that really paved the way for superstars of today in a way, or at least that kind of lifestyle and these songs and comedies. And then in the 1880s, it was sold to another landlord, well, supposedly, but in actual fact, a local Methodist mission who'd been campaigning for many years to have it shut down, managed to buy it. And it took them 5 years to save up the money to buy it. They put down a deposit in 1880, but they didn't actually get the keys until 1885, after a local brewer around here, Charrington's, gave them the rest of the money to purchase it, ironically, even though they were obviously a temperance movement. And they ran that music hall until 1956. They ran it as a church, essentially. But they did some extraordinary things. They fed 1,000 meals a day to the dockers on strike of the Great Dock Strike of 1889,
Wow.
Out of which our first trade union came, and they supported all the locals in the Battle of Cable Street in 1936. They let people hide inside. They bandaged up wounded people, and they let people throw rocks from their roof onto Cable Street. Much with a blind eye, I think. Methodists usually aren't very political people. But and then after the Second World War, unfortunately, they had to leave. The whole area was scheduled for demolition, and I think that's kind of parts of the East End we see today. Even now, you can still see wasteland and bomb sites, but the regeneration is so fast, these kinds of places are disappearing. And Wilton's would have disappeared in the 60s had it not been for the Methodists writing to Sir John Betjeman and saying they're going to knock down our old church, very old music hall, which is normally a history they played down, but he enlisted some of his mates like Peter Sellers and Spike Milligan and Laurence Olivier, and they campaigned to get the building listed, which it is now. It's grade 2-star. You can't knock it down. But it was just kind of left there for about the last 40 years, just empty and rotting and a bit abandoned and forgotten, really. And it's been open for about the last 8 years. It's had a license to be open for about the last 4 years. And so it's kind of finding its feet again as a venue, actually being a music hall itself, just a bit like the rest of the local area, I think.
And can you tell us about the amazing Mahogany Bar as well?
Yes, the Mahogany Bar is quite the most glorious bar in the world. I mean, I would say that I'm very biased, but since the day I walked in there, I'd never quite seen a bar like it. And it's been a bar and a coffee palace and a West Indian club, and now it's back to being a bar again. It was built in 1725, and it was originally called the Prince of Denmark. And then when John Wilton bought it, he kitted it out in mahogany fittings, and everybody thought this was really glamorous and called it the Mahogany Bar. And that's the name that stuck all this time, because when the Methodists took over, they called themselves the Mahogany Bar Mission, and not because they had any affinity with wanting to be a bar anymore, but because they felt that even in the act being sort of with God meant that even if they were a bar which was terribly evil, they could still beat it, and so they could call themselves the Mahogany Bar Mission and still be strongest, which I think is another reason why we shouldn't maintain that name, because it's such a sense of character about it. And now it's our bar again.
Amazing. So the name's lasted through every phase of its history.
Yes.
That's incredible. And so what do you have happening at Wilton's right now?
Right now, we are repairing our auditorium, so you can see it, but you have to look through a little peephole to see the building work going on. We're getting a new roof and a new basement and some drains and electrics, which doesn't sound very much, but actually it's a lot. And the Mahogany Bar is open, and we've just opened up John Wilton's living room upstairs. That's becoming a cocktail bar. And then we've opened up a few more spaces in these houses, but it takes quite a long time to fix them, and they're becoming like smaller performance spaces.
Wow. Well, we'll be chatting to Frances more about her amazing work at Wilton's in just a minute. First of all, here's Elton John with Crocodile Rock.